Welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're going to tackle one of the most visually stunning and honestly, universally important concepts in all of physics. If you've ever looked through a glass of water, worn a pair of prescription glasses, or even just wondered how in the world high-speed fiber optic internet actually works, well, you've interacted with the exact subject of our deep dive today. We're talking about the physics of bending light. So grab your virtual notebooks because we are going to break down refraction and Snell's law like a true physics class. It's going to be structured, it's going to be fascinating, and it is deeply, deeply relevant to your everyday life.
To kick things off, I want you to just picture a classic scenario. You know the one. You take a perfectly straight pencil, you drop it into a glass of water, and suddenly, right at the waterline, it looks completely snapped in half. Or maybe you've looked down into a swimming pool and thought, wow, the bottom looks dangerously close to the surface, only to jump in and realize it's way deeper than you thought. It kind of looks like a glitch in the Matrix, right? But it's not magic. It's a beautifully predictable physical phenomenon, and by the end of this explainer, you are going to know exactly why this optical illusion happens. So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with part 1, the magic of bending light. Then part 2, rules of the optical road. Part 3, decoding Snell's law. Part 4, doing the math together. And we'll wrap up with part 5, refraction in the real world. All right, let's jump right into part 1, the magic of bending light. Let's reframe these everyday visual tricks not as illusions, but as actual, measurable, physical interactions between light and matter. Here is the foundational definition you really need to lock into your memory today. Refraction is the bending of light caused by a change in its speed when it travels between different transparent media. So, whenever light crosses the boundary from one transparent material to another, say from air into water or from water into glass, it experiences a change in speed. And it is that precise change in speed that causes the light ray to physically bend. Just keep in mind, light always travels in a perfectly straight line as long as it stays in the exact same uniform medium. The bending, that only happens at the exact boundary where the two different materials meet. Now, before we go any further, I want to clear up a common pitfall. As a physics teacher, I see this mix up all the time. So we need to draw a very sharp line between refraction and reflection. In refraction, light passes into another medium. Its speed changes and its direction changes because of that speed difference. Think of camera lenses. But in reflection, light bounces back into the same medium. Its speed remains exactly the same, and its direction changes just because it bounced off a surface. Think of mirrors. Keep this distinction crystal clear in your head, and you'll have absolutely no trouble moving forward. Moving right along to part 2, rules of the optical road. Now that we know a change in speed is the actual culprit behind bending light, we need to understand the physical mechanics at play. Just how fast is light moving, and how hard does it hit the brakes in different materials? Well, here is the absolute speed limit of the universe, roughly 300 million meters per second. That's 3 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. That is how fast light travels in a vacuum, completely unimpeded. Literally nothing travels faster. But what happens when it's not in a vacuum? What happens when light actually has to push its way through a physical substance? It slows down. And I mean, look at the stark contrast here. In a vacuum, we're cruising at that maximum 3.0 times 10 to the 8th. But hit water, and light drops down to 2.25. Enter solid glass, and it slows down even more to 2.0. And look at diamond. Light essentially slams on the brakes, dropping all the way down to just 1.24 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. Physicists call these materials optical media. Basically, the more a material slows down the light, the higher its refractive index. So whenever you hear higher refractive index, just think slower light. So why exactly does slowing down cause bending? The shopping cart analogy is absolutely brilliant for illustrating this. Imagine you're pushing a shopping cart from smooth pavement onto a patch of thick grass at an angle. One front wheel hits that thick grass first and immediately bogs down. It slows down. But the other front wheel? It's still on the smooth pavement, moving fast. Because one side is moving slower than the other, the whole shopping cart inevitably pivots and changes direction. Light behaves the exact same way. When a wavefront of light enters a new medium at an angle, one side changes speed before the rest, and that causes the entire wave to rotate and bend. The crucial point here is understanding which way it's going to turn. So here are your rules of the road. Imagine an invisible line perfectly perpendicular to the surface. We call this the normal line. If light travels from an optically rarer medium to a denser one, like from air into water, it slows down and bends toward that normal line. If it goes from denser to rarer, like from glass out into the air, it speeds up and bends away from the normal line. But notice that last bullet point. If light hits the boundary dead on, perfectly perpendicular at a 90-degree angle, will both wheels of the cart hit the grass at the exact same time. The speed definitely changes, but there is absolutely zero bending.
Which brings us to part 3, decoding Snell's law. We've got the concepts down, but physics is a precise science, right? We don't just want to know that light bends. We want to predict exactly, mathematically, how much it will bend. What's really fascinating about this history is just how long it took humanity to piece it all together. Back in the 2nd century, the Greek astronomer Claudius Ptolemy was doing early experiments on light passing between air, water, and glass. But jump to the 10th century. The Persian mathematician Ibn Sahal actually derived the exact mathematical relationship governing refraction. His pioneering work really laid the foundation, though it was sadly unknown in Europe for centuries. It wasn't until 1621 that Dutch mathematician Willebord Snell independently discovered it, and René Descartes later published it in 1637. Today, we universally call it Snell's law, but I always think it's important to recognize Ibn Sahal discovering the exact same thing 600 years prior.
Okay, let's dive into this beautiful equation. N1 sine theta 1 equals N2 sine theta 2. Now, do not let the trigonometry intimidate you. I promise it's just a wonderfully simple balancing act. The N stands for the refractive index. Again, that's just how much the material slows down light. And theta is simply the angle of the light ray measured from that perpendicular normal line we talked about. So all this law is really saying is this: if you know the properties of your starting material and your entry angle on the left side, you can perfectly calculate the angle it will exit at on the right side. It is the absolute cornerstone of modern optics.
But before we crunch the numbers, we really need a quick physics fact check. This is exactly the kind of trick question that shows up on exams. When light enters a denser medium, we know its speed changes, we know its direction changes, and because it slows down, its waves get all bunched up, meaning its wavelength changes too. But look really closely at that last point. The frequency, the number of waves passing a given point per second, remains exactly the same. The frequency is determined entirely by the light source, not the medium it travels through. So don't let anyone catch you on that.
All right, part 4, doing the math together.
Let's roll up our sleeves and apply this to a real problem, just like we were standing at a chalkboard together. Let's say a light ray travels from the air into a piece of solid glass. We know the index of air is a perfect 1.00 and glass is denser at 1.50. The light hits the glass at a 30-degree angle. Step 1, we just write out Snell's law. Step 2, plug in our knowns. 1.00 times the sine of 30 degrees equals 1.50 times the sine of our unknown angle. Since the sine of 30 degrees is simply 0.5, our left side is just 0.5. Step 3, we divide that 0.5 by 1.50, which gives us 0.333. For step 4, we just take the inverse sine of 0.333 on our calculator, and boom, our refracted angle is 19.5 degrees. Because it went from a lighter medium into a denser one, the angle got smaller. It bent right toward the normal line.
Let's look at a quick summary just to see how this builds our complete understanding. When light goes from air into glass, speed and wavelength decrease, and it bends toward the normal. But if we reverse it, say a light ray is escaping from the glass back out into the air, the exact opposite happens. The speed and wavelength increase, and the light bends away from the normal, resulting in a larger exit angle. Master these two scenarios, and you've pretty much mastered the fundamentals of refraction. Finally, let's bring it all home with part 5, refraction in the real world. Snell's law isn't just some abstract concept that lives in a textbook. Humans have literally harnessed it to construct the modern world. Take a look at these everyday applications. If you're wearing corrective eyeglasses right now, lens designers used Snell's law to calculate the exact curvature of the glass needed to bend light perfectly onto your retina. The camera in your smartphone uses multiple refracting lenses stacked together to focus light onto a tiny sensor. Medical microscopes bend light to magnify bacteria. Even the fiber optic cables piping high-speed internet to your house right now rely on these principles to bounce light signals for miles without losing them. And nature gets involved too. Mirages on hot roads? They happen because layers of hot and cold air have different refractive indices, gradually bending the light from the sky right into your eyes.
Before we wrap up, I want to point out one particularly beautiful real-world example, the number 2.42. This is the incredibly high refractive index of a diamond. Because this number is so high compared to air, light entering a diamond is slowed down massively and bent extremely sharply. This intense bending causes the light to undergo multiple internal reflections. It basically bounces around inside the gemstone before finally emerging.
This is the exact physics behind a diamond's exceptional fire, brilliance, and sparkle. It's just math, making things beautiful.
And that brings us to our final thought for this explainer. The bending of a pencil in water might look like a glitch at first glance, but as we've learned today, it's governed by a beautiful, entirely predictable mathematical principle. A simple change in speed dictates the path of light through the universe. So the next time you put on your glasses, or snap a picture with your phone, or look into a clear pool of water, will you just see the world normally, or will you see the secret mathematical rules bending the light right in front of your eyes? Keep questioning, keep observing, and keep learning.